Okay, so what happens when Rob cleans up a little bit around his workstation? He fucks things up so royally. 4 days he's tried to make a video. 4 days. They were silent movies. Oh. Welcome back to Rob's Feed today. This is episode number 94. And me, I'm Rob Schendel. Maybe you're a college student living in a dorm. Maybe you just live in a small studio apartment. What you need to do is get over to dormco.com/Rob. Once you're there, you'll find all kinds of items specifically designed for folks living in small spaces. That's dormco.com/Rob. As it turned out, it wasn't the end of the world, but here's what happened. So, I cleaned up, as I said, and you ever see, I'm sure you know what this is. You plug your pods in, your whatever device, usually into something else. Well, when I go and clean, it came out just ever so slightly. In fact, I couldn't even tell that it had. I trying to troubleshoot, I looked to see. It looked like it was in there. Not until today, just before my 8th attempt to do a video, I actually pressed it back in, and I could hear it seat itself in the socket into the port. That is, of course, after I've tried troubleshooting everything else. All the little lights on the mixer appeared to be functioning normally. I'd tap on the microphone, it'd register a signal, no audio, until I actually went into the system preferences, and I could see that it wasn't registering any signal at all. Well, why didn't I just do this advanced troubleshooting on Sunday or Monday? Because I'm an idiot. These are really sad times. It's like I just don't even know where to begin. The unbelievable slaughter, massacre in the parking lot of a Safeway food store in Tucson, Arizona this past Saturday. It just so infuriates me. And I just want to, reemphasize, I don't care what you think the Constitution says. Unless we are the military or the police, we have no business possessing firearms of any sort. In fact, I believe that that's what our forefathers meant when they wrote that into the Constitution, the right to bear arms. It didn't mean you and me sitting on our asses at a baseball game or something. It meant the right to bear arms is the right to form a military, to defend the borders, to defend the treaties, to whatever. It's just nuts. And how the right wing how they can get out of blame for this. The hate speech, the vitriol, you get to the right person who's a little off balance, like we had here this week, and see what they can do, what they will do. Speaking of the right wing, I've seen people tweet or quote, well, what the hell was he not on his meds for? Why hadn't he had psychiatric care? Well, I'll tell you why. Because we had this president named Reagan once who stripped mental health out of everything that could possibly be. He didn't want federal monies paying for that. And suddenly you see all these people, homeless people right and left, people, not necessarily homeless people, but people with mental problems everywhere, particularly in urban areas. Thank you, right wing. You scored there, and you're scoring yet today, and it's just nuts. I honestly feel that the reason Reagan was so down on mental health was because the previous administration, that of Mr. President Jimmy Carter, his wife, Rosalind, had as her pet cause the mental health of Americans. So Reagan no sooner gets into office than he has to strike that from our consciousness. There is a Chicago, remember I'm in Chicago, there is a Chicago connection to one of the victims, a young Christina Green, 9 years old, who was killed that horrible day. Well, those of us who are Chicago sports fans, and I certainly am, will remember back 20 years ago or so, the Chicago Cubs was managed by Dallas Green. And Dallas Green happens to be Christina Green's, our child victim here, happens to be her grandfather. Now, I do have some issues with the state of Arizona. I really wasn't aware of Gabriella Gifford in her congressional district, which I understand is quite a progressive area, that Tucson area down there. And that's nice to hear. But they have this papers, please law that was signed in by their accidental governor, Jan Brewer, who I never liked until this incident, this occurred. She did handle herself with poise and dignity, and is doing well, I think. Not that any other governor wouldn't as well. I just didn't expect as much from Jan Brewer. But there's somebody in Arizona that deserves some recognition. And that's 20-year-old gay man by the name of Daniel Hernandez. Now, I watched a lot of interviews with, for example, Rachel Maddow the other night. A nice long interview with him. And I knew watching that both the interviewer and the interviewee are gay. And it never came up. Never came up in the discussion. And then was wondering, should it have? And I guess I've thought of that a couple days, and I really wish it had. This is another example of middle America who's all against anything gay would warm up to the idea if they only knew that somebody they liked or respected was gay. But again, that would have made this more political than it already is. So who knows? But I do wish that it was more well known and that Dan Hernandez would speak a little bit about it. But there's another thing, though, aside from the gay issue. His name is Hernandez. He's kind of like Latin. He's the type of guy who would be a prime candidate to be stopped and asked for his papers. Just imagine if he had been stopped and asked for his papers on the way to go and save the Congresswoman's life. I sigh a lot, don't I? I could say more, but then I'd sigh more. So on that note, I think that's all I'm going to say.